Happy New Year, it's 2024 and we have a brand new episode of the weekly Reddit Overwatch University questions for Overwatch. Cue the intro. Okay, top upvoted question of the week on the subreddit is, what do you do as a support versus Malga Ultimate? Do you get in to heal your team? Do you stay out and leave them for death? Posts must be 300 characters, but that's my whole question. I often struggle with Malga Ult when I'm playing support since there is a giant shield that I can't heal past, and I wonder, should I try to get into the ult myself to heal a team? But that will probably get me killed. Should I stay out of it? That will probably get my team killed. What's the best way to counter it, and can you counter it? That's a great question. So for all the support mains, it really depends on what support you're playing, first of all, right? If you're Life Weaver, don't get in. Bring them out, right? Life Grip and or Pedal Platform, save the person inside if you're getting solo caged. If you're Moira, you can pierce through it with Healing Orbs and your Coalescence Ultimate, but of course you can't pee through the cage ult because the heals don't go through shields. Mercy can heal through it. And that might be all off the top of my head. Oh, I guess like Zenyatta can throw a healing orb inside, but really it does depend on what supports you play. For me, I play KarQ, Baptiste, and Ana, and I will say 90% of the time, my approach is to actually go into the Mauga ult. Depends though. There's a couple of like ifs, buts, and you know, depending on some factors, but I would say most of the time I end up going in. Why? If somebody is caged in, or especially if two people are caged in, it's probably a lost team fight anyway, so I go in there for like a chance that we can even it out, or potentially like turn the fight around while I go in there. The second is if you go in there, you can actually sustain and take the fight in there quite well, believe it or not, right? Most of the time when people are getting caged in, I usually play with Flats when I play ranked in our top 500 lobbies. He'll always be like, no bitch shit. Basically, if he cages or if he gets caged in, the whole premise is don't bitch out, just go in there with them. And if I'm playing KarQ, I'll usually go in Suzu and just start fighting inside. If I can help it, I'll pop my cooldowns like Kitsune and try to even out the trade as best as possible. But yeah, one other small tip against cage fight is that as long as you don't have line of sight of the chain in the center of the enemy cage fight, you can actually enter the cage fight without getting tethered to it. So I don't know if we can find this clip off the top of my head, but let me explain it. Let's say the enemy Mauga caged inside this closed door, like inside a doorway, right? And then the thing is like ringed around it, right, with the cage. If I'm this person here, I can walk into like the bottom left half of inside the cage and heal my teammate on one side of the door. As long as I don't peek the main opening of the door where the chain can see me and then I get tethered, I can stay in there, heal them as needed, and pop out as needed as well. And I did that on a New Junk City match a few weeks ago. I was able to heal Flats, we threw all our cooldowns in, and we were able to turn the fight around. But yeah, the answer is it depends, but for the most part, if you're just asking for my opinion, I usually go into the Mauga Ultimate. Ain't a bitch. Next question, is the remaining player base better? Ranked seems harder than in Overwatch 1. This is just my speculation, but is rank harder now that the remaining player base is generally people who have played for a while and are committed to the game? I know the average mid-gold player skills have always been increasing the longer the game exists, so you always have to keep up as people improve. But for example, the sport pickleball is really popular right now. Say there's a place that has 15,000 people every weekend, but 10 years from now, it's down to 2,000 people. Even though there are less players, won't it be harder to maintain an average rank or climb since the remaining 2,000 players are all hardcore pickleballers? I used to be a stable mid-dime, but now I'm floating around in plat. I highly doubt that there's any meaningful amount of new players entering Overwatch. Sorry, Blizzard. What do you all think? Thanks. Honestly, just answer the top question. Is the remaining player base better? I would always say yes. You nailed it right in your second sentence where you're just like, hey, people are always improving, right? Players like a Silver Mercy now may know how to super jump, but a Silver Mercy from 2017 probably didn't know what a super jump was at that time. You know what I mean? So the average player base is always getting better, and your skill distribution is a representation of the player base, the active player base. And if the active players in Overwatch are probably a heavy mix of new players and a lot of old Overwatch 1 veterans, a lot of them have a lot more experience. So yes, your average Silver now is probably better than, yeah, you know, Silvers from the past. I think that's an easy answer. That being said, everyone's perception of that might be a little different. People improve at different rates, right? Some people may have the opposite experience where you said you used to be what, like mid diamond, but now you're floating around plat. When did you used to be mid diamond? You know what I mean? Also, there's a lot of other factors to consider. You can't really consider it like the rest of the player base getting better and you getting worse. Maybe you played tilted. Maybe you're just, you know, not seeing the game correctly. Something's going on and in your life, and you know, you're missing certain cooldowns and ult tracking, or you're doing things that you used to do, but you're just not doing it right now, which is not a representation of the player base, but more of like you. Sometimes if I play and I've lack of sleep, I just like totally just brain farted and I'm just whiffing my mechanics. Maybe I'm getting arthritis and my aim is off, right? There's a lot of other factors, but easy answers, remaining player base is certainly getting better. Next question, why is Sigma always considered a good tank? I started playing Overwatch around when Overwatch 2 released, so I'm not actually too knowledgeable about the past of the other tanks, but every time Sigma comes up, people always say he's been the most balanced and usually viable tank. I'm gonna stop you there. He's definitely not been the most balanced. Release Sigma in 2019 when he came out was definitely not balanced. That guy was way too good. Like he had a 1600 HP shield or 1400 HP shield. It's only got like 800 HP now. Imagine double that shield. The suck was like, you couldn't stun him out of it. Like Roadhog can hook him out of the stun right now while he sucks, but back then he was immune to the hog hook. The gravitic flux was OP. Even if he picked somebody up and he got slept or CC'd, it would still finish the entire gravitic flux. I think the rock used to do more damage as well, or stun a bit longer. I have a whole video in the past about like the strongest state or most broken state of every hero. You can go see what release Sig used to look like. Anyways, I just had to stop you there. Let me finish the question. So you're blah, 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 blah. People say he's always been the most balanced. Why? I feel like most comps can just run over Sigma or push the Sigma out of his space. He doesn't have much damage to resist back. Okay, this is one of those things where I'm gonna unpack it and answer it as we go. You said, I feel like most team comps can run over the Sigma. That's true. If you brawl or rush into him with speed, he does actually fall over. Sigma's all about controlling the space and poking people out. And he does have actually a lot of damage. His damage is just like distributed a little bit differently. It's consistent chip poke damage every time. His TTK one-shot burst combo is only really possible if he lands the rock and follows it up with 2 primaries for 200 HP heroes. But other than that, he just slowly pokes and whittles you down until you have no resources and you have to wait and you can't take his space. Anyways, the only reason why I think he's considered viable was because of his sustainability with the shield, overhealth mitigation, and rock to stun. But I feel like if a team is based around high damage or high speed, he or his team just gets ran over before he can do anything. Like, especially now people say Sigma's the only good tank against Mauga besides Mauga himself. Although Mauga's entire thing is just running over opponents and getting rewarded, while Sig has to either stand his ground or get ran over or retreat so far behind to give you a lot of space. Can anybody explain how he's still good with these flaws? Well, I wouldn't say he's necessarily flawed in that sense. You know, Sigma has his strengths where he's good, which is basically poke, and he does actually fall apart if the enemy team can close the gap and get you in. So the thing with his matchup against Mauga is it's less about like his entire team coming in with them, and it's more about you as a Sigma being a good matchup because you can actually throw the shield past the Mauga to cut off Mauga's sustain. Mauga's really good with sustain, and if you can cut off the heals like the Kiriko and the Ana with a shield, and if Mauga all-ins you when he pops Cardiac, you pop your Gravitic Suck, you absorb a lot of the damage and you mitigate a lot of it. And then yes, he'll be able to shoot you and lifesteal a little bit, but you are able to survive, and that's part of what makes Sigma really good. He has a bit of everything. Pretty decent damage, great poke, because that's his like basic archetype. The 3 archetypes in Overwatch are what? Brawl, Dive, and Poke. He is like the poke tank, so he's got great, pretty consistent damage, good CC with the rock, and good damage mitigation. He's actually one of the sturdiest tanks because of the combination of the shield and his gravitic accretion is what it's called, right? No, that's the rock. No, accretion is the suck. Yeah, with the suck plus the combo with the shield, if you have good resource management there, you can sustain yourself really long. And if you can sustain past, like Mauga's also a sustain tank as well. You can out-sustain him a little bit in some capacity because Mauga relies on constantly shooting you to lifesteal it back. But if you're good at mitigating with your shield and your suck, you can lower Mauga's effectiveness quite a bit. And your ultimate is really good against Mauga as well because you can slam him down and make him lose half his HP, which is a lot because Mauga has a lot of HP. Sigma is like just a very flexible, versatile tank, and he's been very good for a long time. So, but the thing is, like you said, Brawl does kind of, if Mauga does close the gap, and if you're not just cutting off the heals, like if they run like a Lucio variant of Mauga and they're all inning you on Sigma, you will fall apart, yes. So one of the downsides of Sigma is if you get rushed down, you do fall apart, which is why Sigma is really, really good on very front to back maps like Circuit Royale, where there's not very many flank angles. They have to come straight at you. But if you play Sigma in a very open map and Mauga and the team are able to collapse on you in different angles, you'll fall apart. And that's why good Sigma players also know when to switch. There's actually a lot of cases where you do have to switch. You can't force, I mean, you can force a hero in every situation, but you're gonna end up losing some games. There's gonna be certainly situations like whole Rush Brawl stuff where you just can no longer play him anymore. Okay, next question. How do you play with Wrecking Ball on your team? Seems like every time I have a ball on my team, the enemy tank just walks all over the backline and kills everyone. Then our ball starts whining every time with the victim complex. Anyways, how does the way you play change when you have a tank like Ball that spends most of their time playing backline? Okay, Wrecking Balls, the thing with people complaining with the ball on your team is that they don't know how to play with the ball. And I'm gonna explain to you to answer your question. Ball's way of tanking is not unlike, you know, a Reinhardt or a Sigma or Ramattra, where you have like a front shield or an Orisa where they're standing in front of you, they're soaking damage like a traditional tank, a front to back style tank. Ball is all about disrupting hopefully more than one person. Either they burst a 200 HP hero themselves with this pile drive and then they like hopefully clip out a mispositioned isolated target, or they're making 3 or 4, hopefully more enemies look at the ball and they draw threat or aggro, right? You guys ever play other MMOs? Getting aggro of the enemy team. That's Ball's way of creating space. And people are very one-dimensional minded, that if they don't have that frontal tank or that shield, they don't know how to play with the ball. But all you have to do when ball goes in is you have to go in with the ball, like move forward. But you have to play cover a little bit better because obviously you're in open sight lines. There's no person in front of you. But, you know, go from cover to cover and try to take advantage of the chaos that ball is creating, the disruption, right? If the ball is disrupting the enemy supports, that one enemy tank is probably low on resources. You can't run and hide if ball's going in. If you run and hide, then yes, all 4 people looking at ball will eventually take the ball down. And if that one tank on the enemy team didn't have to turn around for the ball, just stands there and you don't kill the tank because you just got scared, then you will lose. So that's the key. You have to go in with the ball, right? Stay alive and go in. And also, if you're a support, like, you don't have to necessarily heal the ball. Ball's entire shtick is that he rolls the health packs so that you as a support don't have to stand there and wait for the ball to roll back, and he stands there while you're in Ana. You're like, stand still, let me shoot you. Because that's called that. If you do that, you lose tempo and you lose space. A good ball is supposed to roll for a health pack and pray that their support can hit the shots while he's continually moving. The moment the ball leaves the backline, there's a lot of downtime, and that downtime means the enemies can do whatever they want with that space. And that's where like the bad balls really make it feel terrible to play with the ball, when they're not understanding that, and like there's just no space created for your team because they're just waiting. They're like, oh, please, Ana, heal me. That's a bad ball. Ball, just go for health packs and just continue to go back in and wait for your adaptive shield and continue to make space. Okay, what are you supposed to do versus Ashe and Soldier high ground? I'm in Masters 1, and basically all my games consist of the same thing, and Ashe and Soldier being boosted, mercy boosted, sitting on high ground, and as a DPS, I feel so hopeless against it. Like, if my tank isn't willing to deal with them, then we can't do anything. When I was ranking up, I didn't think the meta would depend on them so badly, so I never bothered to play them. Now I feel like without knowing how to play them, I can't do anything. The thing is, you are a DPS player, right? And you can't deal with a pocketed DPS like an Ashe or Soldier on the high ground. That is probably true, right? If you are one person, you're trying to take a 1v2 in essence, right? A damage boosted DPS is 2 players versus 1. You're naturally gonna be at a disadvantage. If you duel an Ashe, you're an Ashe, you duel a pocketed Ashe, you're gonna lose like 7 out of 10 times, right? Maybe the odd time that they whiff, you actually dink a bunch of times, but then the mercy reses anyways. So your job is to just pressure them a little bit out when they're not looking. Maybe you can do some pot shots at them and just kind of make the Ashe kind of, you know, back up. Or if you're playing a different kind of hero, you have to spam projectiles or something to make them leave that high ground. It really depends on the hero and what your team comp is and who can best deal and like force them out. If you don't have a pocket, let's say I'm a KarQ and I notice my entire team is very flat ground and they have a high ground hero that is actually just rolling our team. Me as a KarQ, I will actually go up there and contest. Well, whether I poke from a distance with kunai to actually bother to look at them, or I actually go up and sneak up and do my best to kind of force them off. And if you're a tank player and you're a vertical mobility, it is actually your job in a lot of cases, not necessarily to kill them, but to get them off that strong positioning so that even if they are still pocketed, they're playing in a weaker position and then you can win off of that. So, you know, there's a couple of factors to TLDR your thing. One, if you're a solo player, solo DPS, use a couple projectiles, whatever tool you have at your disposal. Number two, if you're dive or you have a dive tank, use your voice or your pings and communicate. We need someone to flush them out. Sometimes you just be like, we need somebody, and no, like it's actually much better to have direction. Just be like, yo, you, Reaper, or yo, you, Winston. Can you just jump them first, force them out of high ground, so that, you know, they don't stand there anymore, because like their soldier or their Ashe will have to burn another cooldown or time to go back on the high ground. A lot of times they don't go back there once they've been threatened off of it. You have to just call it out. If nobody's picking up on it, your team is going to eventually lose if they're uncontested, because that's their win con and they're doing their job. And number three, you sort of ignore them, but play out of their sight lines and just go kill somebody else if possible. But that one's a little like if, maybe, and but, depending on what the map is and where their high ground is. All right, next. What is the difference between pro players and a diamond? Oh, a lot, man, a lot. So I, 14 years old, am a diamond DPS player. Wow, congrats. My dream is to become a pro Overwatch player one day. I wonder, what is the main difference gameplay-wise in doing special things to improve between pro and ladder players like me, and how can I apply that to my games to climb higher and improve? Okay, the skill gap between diamond and pro is very high. I think it's good to aspire to be a pro Overwatch player, and honestly, being a diamond player, you are better than the majority of the player base. You're like better than 90%. But like being better than 90% still means there's 10% of like, there's thousands of players who are still better than you, and you have to slowly work your way up. Like a difference between a pro and you right now is like any category. Pick something and they're probably better at you in one. And if you specifically have a better aim, or you're a DPS player, if you have better aim, maybe there's that other pro DPS player that that plays a little bit of a less aim intensive hero, maybe like Reaper, where you don't have to have perfect tracking. Like there's just the gap is huge, right? And like it's hard to say like there's the main difference gameplay wise doing something special. They're doing everything better. But one thing I can tell you to work on immediately that can help is your own movement. I'm a firm believer that your own movement is one of the easiest things to not only get better at and fix, but to improve you as a player overall, because you survive longer. If you survive longer, you have inherent higher value averaged out over time, because you simply are able to survive and do and contribute to the team fight by having less average deaths. Now, how do you have less average deaths with the movement thing? Learning how to strafe properly and implementing that as often as possible goes a long way. If you ever see a high level tracer, a pro tracer, like it is night and day between like a low GM1 tracer and a like top 5 Korean tracer that has won a title or whatever. Like they are just so good at manipulating their movement, and their manipulation of their movement, they still have great aim control, but that manipulation of movement makes them hard to kill. And being hard to kill, like I just said earlier, is the big indicator. I've watched enough even diamond, like platinum diamond, somewhere around your rank VODs, and their movement is so one-dimensional. I'm a top 500 ladder player, and I get smoked by pro support players. I can sort of keep up with the tempo now. I've been playing at this level a long time, but like they're still they've still got like another level or two above me there. It's like, you want to put it, let's say in basketball terms, okay? You're a diamond, right? Let's say you're just like a 10th grade high school basketball player on your team. Like that is better than the majority of the population. 90% of the population, you can ball, right? You probably got some moves, you're pretty sweet. But the pro player is the NBA. And then you can see like even in a high level, high school, low level college, D1 college, still get smoked. You're sometimes still a bench player in the NBA. You got nothing on these guys. And I'm not saying you can't get there, but like there's a lot you got to work on. So good luck to you. You're 14 years old, you're young, you've got a bright future ahead of you. Okay, how do I assassinate supports better as Echo? Hello everyone, I've been playing Echo recently and I've been seeing many YouTubers, blah, 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 seen guides. Okay, so one of the biggest problems I've come across is when I silently try to flank a support, it's always a coin toss between me killing them or them killing me, and it's been very frustrating. Due to her silent footsteps, I try to sneak up behind on a scoped Ana or any support who's busy doing anything, and then sticky basic beam to finish them off. But no matter what I seem to do, it seems like they can react very quickly to me and are able to kill me first. Their ability to self-heal also kind of messes up my 50% threshold for a beam. Mostly, I'm having trouble with Ana's self-nade basic sleep and it's over. Bap, Shift, Lamp, Kiri, Suzu, or TP. I feel like the only one I can truly take down quickly is Zen and sometimes Brig. I know that supports are rather strong these days. Samito even sent his guide that sometimes are better than DPS, blah, blah, blah. Must be something to do about them, right? My purpose is supposed to be to kill the support. Okay. Number 1, to assassinate his Echo, you have the right steps, but your timing and your like cooldown tracking probably isn't all there yet. Echo, your combo is correct. You throw the stickies into the primary, into the beam. Sometimes you don't even need the primary fire. And honestly, maybe like without seeing video proof, you might actually be executing the combo a little bit slowly or incorrectly. This game is all about seconds and timings, or milliseconds and timing, right? If you are sneaking up and they truly didn't see or hear you on the way and they have no awareness that you're on an off angle flank to assassinate, the Ana should not be able to sleep you. Like, they can react to getting stuck and nading, but like you should be able to burst them through, because a full sticky combo, if you land it all on a scoped Ana, is more than enough, right? To kill the Ana specifically. With Kiriko, she can Suzu and disappear and all those things, so you won't be able to assassinate, but you did force their cooldowns, which is something to consider. But if you all in on that angle and they TP out, then you're caught in the backline. So a big part of assassinating supports is timing, but also the cooldown tracking. Right? The problem in itself is you're not tracking your cooldown. If you're having a problem with those cooldowns, you have to maybe poke for a little bit and force those cooldowns out, or wait to assassinate once your team is in. Then your timing is better because they've already used their cooldowns, those big important support cooldowns. Cooldown tracking is a skill in itself. Maybe you've got the whole mechanic and the combo down where you sticky as you fly up and then you beam instantly. But if they have all their cooldowns, they will live, and you just have to try to force them up before you go in. That might be your better option. Be a bit sneakier. Okay, what role does Cass currently fill? Background, Silver 1 DPS, mostly between Soldier, Reaper, Cass. Yes, you love FPSs, but the thing with Cass, after the range nerf, it's felt awkward for me. He needs to be close but lacks mobility, so he's especially positioning dependent on long sightline maps, or anything with tedious pathing like Circuit or Gibraltar are unpleasant. Then there's Flashpoint and push maps with long travel times. Generally, I can ID these perks for Cass over Ashe and Soldier, who seem to be most comparable. The plus 25 HP gives leeway on some breakpoints. That's true. You're a bit tankier. The Magnate forces divers and mobility players to play more cautious. That's also true. The threat of 2 taps within 25 meters forces corner hugging, stretching to 30 meters with 2 times headshot. That's correct. The ult is a meme, but gets people to back off for the duration, can counter an enemy ult like Visor, Overclock, blah, blah, blah. True. It gets meme, but it's also a tanky button, by the way. Advantage versus Ashe is the consistent reload time, doesn't need to ADS. Fan, roll, fan, shreds tank. Matt Mercer's beautiful voice. Am I missing something? I feel like Soldier can have more uptime and off angling with his mobility and range, so I've been favoring him more currently. You know, this was a pretty good understanding and breakdown of why you would favor Cass. Like you said, the 25 HP gives you a lot of leeway on the breakpoint. When you combine that with the combat roll, that's a 50% damage reduction during the roll. Or when you pops High Noon, I think it's a 40% damage reduction. That 25 HP can actually allow you to survive things like a Tracer Pulse Bomb when you roll correctly, and the 25 HP allows you to not get, 3 tap by Ana, for example. Right? So that's a big advantage. That's the niche he fills. He's like a tankier DPS. And then the second thing is this close range threat. That's actually his niche. That's the role that I see Cass as right now. You're right that Soldier and Ashe probably have a more one-size-fits-all, a bit more of a flexible role to fill in the team. But Cass is pretty much only good against those divers and mobility characters. Like, I would say Doomfist, Wrecking Ball, and honestly, even Winston, depending on how good the Winston is. But you can like fan the hammer against Winston's bubble to really break that, because bubble is one of his best abilities if he dives. So that's one thing you can do. With Doom, hindering him on the spot as soon as he goes in, big advantage for your team. Same with Wrecking Ball. And I think in those 3 matchups and teams built around those tanks, that's his niche and that's his role. Everything else for long range and depending on the map, you definitely play Ashe, Soldier, and or Soldier for your hit scan needs. But you're not really missing anything. We're near the end of our questions. I placed too high, can't drop ranks. What does that mean? So I created an alternate account a few months ago. For reference, my main is mid-gold. The primary reason I created it is to be able to play with my friends without worrying about my rank, but also to be able to play competitive with my bronze 5 friends who occasionally are just out of range of my gold account. I'm going to play characters that I don't play, like Genji, Doom, Lucio, Mercy, so my skill level will be genuinely bronze. So I decided to try learning Tracer on this alt account. Thought I'll be bad at Tracer, so surely I'll get placed at a low rank, right? No, I placed Plat 5 for my first rank. Okay, no worries, I'll probably drop. Nope, Plat 4, Plat 3. And I basically just kept hovering around these ranks. And I didn't exclusively play Tracer. I swapped the Soldier, Ashe in Situation 4, since I was not good at Tracer, and I didn't want my team suffering. My entire goal was to drop the ranks without throwing the game. I went back to my main and I can't get out of gold at all. Sure, I have inconsistent performance and sometimes I have bad teams, as do my opponents, so it balances out. I'm not complaining. I just find it hilarious how I can hold my own in plat, but not be able to climb out of gold. So how do I play competitive with my bronze friends? Go back to my alt and learn another hero like Genji, Doom. I'm surely going to drop if I play those, but I feel bad for my teammates. I can turn off voice and text for my sanity, but is playing a new character I have less than 2 hours experience with in quick play in a high rank unethical? I mean, high rank in a relative sense, of course. Okay, this is a pretty interesting question. I actually think this is totally just a KarQ opinion. I'm not saying this is fact, but I actually think it's a psychological issue. I'm not saying there's something psychologically wrong with you, but this is like a psychology thing. Sorry, saying issue sounded a little mean. When people play with less tension and they feel like less is on the line, they end up playing better. They play on a new account and they're like, it's just a casual account. I don't care about it as much. You're still playing hard, but there's like no worry about your rank because it's not your main account. And then they inevitably end up playing better. So you're playing better in platinum because like your mind is free. That makes any sense. But when you're back on your main, you're like, oh, it's gold. And you're like, why can't I get out? You're like already tilting yourself. You're a little frustrated because like my other alternates account is in plat. What am I doing wrong here? You start questioning yourself and then you play differently without you realizing it. You're playing a bit more safe. You're like, well, I'm plat in the other account. Like, why can't I do it here? And you're kind of just like self-nerfing yourself because of your mindset. Not sure if this is true psychology, but that's how I would interpret it, right? So that's why my entire shtick as a player is that I just play my best and let the rank take care of itself. That's why I never look at my teammates' profiles because I don't want to tilt I don't care what rank they are. I don't even look at my own rank most of the time unless I see it at the end. But I just play my game, play my best. As long as I'm satisfied with my play, my rank will balance itself or even itself out. So that's my interpretation of why you're plat on an alt and gold on your main. The self nerfs. Do your best, forget the rest. Right? I learned that from Emong a lot. I watch him quite a bit in the mornings and he just never looks at profiles. He plays his own game and he always gets back. If I play and I fell to GM3 last season. I'm a GM1 support player. I started getting a little tilted when I fell down to GM2, GM3. I was like, oh God. And then like, the chat memes me a little bit. It's all good. But like, I know where I stand as a player. If I just start questioning myself, like, am I a GM1 player anymore? Oh God, like if I start playing with too much tension, I'll end up playing worse, and I know it. Everybody goes through ups and downs and bad streaks, right? So like, I've played this game long enough, and I feel like I'm chill enough to understand that like, I know where my skill level is. I can't change the rank. I just have to play my best every game, right? So like, I've always said there's a regression to the mean. I know what kind of player I am, and lo and behold, like the next week I went on a win streak, and now I'm back in top 100 right now. You know what I mean? So it's like, just relax. Play your best. Now, the second part of your thing was like, you can't drop and play with bronze friends. It's a little, I wouldn't say it's not illegal to like make a new account and play with your friends, right? It's just, they're making the whole new rank system in season 9 for that whole reason, so you can play with your friends without having to make new accounts, because you're just gonna like keep messing up the matchmaker. Like new players are smurfing to play with friends, and that kind of already tweaks the matchmaker a little bit. It kind of like messes up the calibration in that sense. So like playing on the main and having a system built in where you can play with the bronze friend depending on how far your main is, with an adjusted matchmaker for that will probably help with the algorithm in the long run. So I would say just wait till next season to play with your bronze friends. But for the first part on why you are higher on your alternate account versus your main, I gave you my psychology answer, my interpretation. Last question. Ramattra is the best counter to Mauga, and I'll die on this hill. Thoughts? Oh, this is a wall of text. Okay, let me see if I can TLDR this. Okay. That was nice to take correct. Ramattra 2 plays all of this. Of course, and now he eats online. It's not very easy. On the form, primary dimensional falling clip. Right, yeah, but you have things, force drive, time, vortex. This is the first step. Same shield, shield, self, hard, too much pressure, shield, blocking pressure, blocking on yours. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. I kind of see where you're kind of going with this, and I'll TLDR it. He's saying Ramattra is the best counter to Mauga because you can control when you switch your forms to play to your advantage. I just think that's good Ramattra fundamentals. Because Ramattra has 2 forms by default, he can be squeezed in a lot of matchups with relative ease in terms of, like, you know, adjusting your playstyle to what the enemy needs. So he's saying that since Mauga is all about life stealing, you can mitigate a lot of it with your shield with good timing and or switching to the Ramattra block. Now the problem with this, it's not really a problem, but like I see where you're coming from, and I actually agree. I don't actually think Ram is that terrible of a matchup against Mauga. I think it's probably, I would place like Sigma at the, like, play another Mauga as the best like 50-50 matchup. Sigma can deal okay. I don't know if Ram is 50-50, but like he's certainly not the worst choice. I think one of the worst choices is probably like Winston or something right now. You can block a lot of his engagement. So here's the flaw in the logic. I'm losing my train of thought here. Mauga's cardiac arrest is for his whole team, not just him. And I think you're kind of looking at it too one-dimensionally, where you're just looking at the specific tank versus tank in front of each other, but you're not considering the external factors. What if their whole team stands in the cardiac overdrive and they all get 70% lifesteal? Then what, right? The thing with Mauga is that if he pops his ability, his strongest ability, the cardiac arrest, the team walks in and out, they still get that buff, that lifesteal buff, and that makes it pretty tough. And if you are spending your entire Nemesis form blocking, you're also losing your value, because Mauga's best value is that cardiac arrest, and then he's kind of like okay without it. Ramattra is really good in his Nemesis form, but if you're spending it all blocking all that damage, then you're kind of, and then you get kicked out of your form back again, then you're kind of just there existing again, right? So so you kind of went the best counter in the title, which is pretty bold of a claim. I'm sorry to say, you might die on that hill, because you said I'll die on this hill for that. Not the best counter, but certainly not, wouldn't say even a counter at all, but he's just not a terrible matchup in the vacuum in a 1v1. That's an easy way to put it, right? And when you're back in Omnic form, your kill pressure isn't there. You're basically just farming their support's ult charge. You were saying something about your Omnic, your primary fire doing 1200 damage per clip. You can hit a lot on the Mauga, but he probably won't die from that alone. Especially like as long as he's strafing a little bit, he's not going to die to an entire clip of Ramattra's poke. He kind of just has to wait as well for the engagement. So it's not like you're kind of just feeding him ult charge and or the support ult charge. It's like, yeah, that's the short answer. That's 10 questions for the week. Thank you for this week's Reddit Overwatch University, and Happy New Year. See you guys next week for this. Bye.